Equitas Small Finance Bank. Mr. N Vasudevan, MD and CEO at the company, is with us. Sir, thank you so much for taking out time for us. It was a strong set of update that you have given, especially in terms of growth. Can you just tell us what's happening in the sector? A lot of decently mid-sized bank to large-sized bank are reporting strong QOQ growth.
Good morning. Yeah, the first quarter has been generally good across the sector. There was a lot of pent-up demand in the last 2 years, and I think we are seeing that getting played out, especially in the retail side. And of course, you know that Equitas, we are purely a retail bank. We have no corporate exposure, so it's a purely retail bank. And in Equitas, 90% of our loans are to the informal economy borrowers. And as we all know, the bank credit to the informal economy has been very low over the last so many decades. And so not only the pandemic pent-up demand, but traditionally, historically, there's been a lot of unmet demand in that sector. And that's what we are seeing getting played out. And the first quarter generally actually is a weaker quarter, normally speaking. But even in the first quarter, we had about a 20% growth in advances. And I think we are fairly well on track to deliver our 30% growth for the year that we had guided earlier.
So, you're saying Q1 has been strong. Now, I've been looking at banking numbers for really long, and one of the key trend is that Q4 is the strongest, and over that Q1 is always looking weak. So how has this trend changed? I mean, traditionally Q4 is the strongest one. Over that in Q1, people are seeing strong growth.
Yes, you are right. Traditionally, Q4 is the best for all banks, and Q1 generally starts a little weaker. But this time what's happened is that, if you remember, there was a wave 3 which spilled over into the month of January. And so the Q4 was slightly muted because maybe the first 15-20 days of Jan was not very strong. So that is one. But the fact is that the pent-up demand is getting played out in the first quarter of this year, which normally does not happen. The Q4 is very strong and Q1 starts weaker. But this year, specifically, Q1 started off better simply because the pent-up demand got released this year. And so we expect that the next 2-3 quarters for all the banks and for Equitas also, we believe should be very strong.
But are you not worried at all in terms of the impact of the rising interest rate environment, the inflationary scenario as well? Any sort of risks that you see in your vehicle portfolio in particular owing to these risks?
Yes, so we are obviously in the midst of inflationary scenario. Interest rates have risen already. There's a lot of expectation it might go up a little bit more also. The RBI has also released the interest rate on FCNRB deposits recently. So there might be another spike in the interest rates arising out of that. But if you look at Equitas portfolio, about 45% of our portfolio is for small business customers, which is secured against their house property. And these are people who are actually traditionally into daily use products and services. Like a two-wheeler mechanic shop or a cell phone repair shop or a small eatery or a provision store, etc. So the level of inflationary impact on such businesses are actually very little. And if at all they feel an inflation on their side, their ability to pass it on by just raising their prices by a marginal amount is very comfortable, because these are daily use products and services. People have to consume them on an everyday basis. So generally, our customers are fairly protected against the inflation impact on the small business loan and microfinance, which is about 65% of the book. As far as the vehicles is concerned, yes, 25% of our book is comprised of commercial vehicle finance. Commercial vehicle finance will have an impact based on the overall economic growth of the country. But currently we have seen that commercial vehicles have actually been on a strong uptick. The credit demand has been very high. The offtake of new vehicle sales itself has been very strong in the CV sector. So we expect that the CV sector this year should continue to do well. And given that we are retail lenders in the CV sector, the effect of interest rate is not very high from an EMI perspective, because our average loans in commercial vehicle is just about 4 lakh rupees. So on a 4 lakh rupees for a 3-year, even if the rate goes up by 1%, the impact of EMI from let's say a 15,000 rupee EMI will just go up to about 15,500. So the impact on that EMI is not high given the low ticket size and the low tenor.
Right. Also, I just wanted to understand that, the last we spoke, you had indicated that you were likely to undertake a merger by the 31st of March, apply for that universal banking license. What is the progress on that front? And can you update our viewers?
Yeah, so there has been a lot of progress on that. We have received the NOC from RBI. We have also received the NOC from SEBI. We have now filed the petition with NCLT, and now we are awaiting the shareholder and creditor meeting to be convened under the NCLT orders. So that's where we are currently. And we have also completed the NOC condition of RBI by divesting our subsidiary, Equitas Technologies, from the holding company. That's also got completed. So a lot of progress has happened. And we are initially estimated by March 2023, we might be able to complete the merger. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed. We might be able to do that about 2-3 months ahead of that deadline.
Right. Mr. Vasudevan, just one final question. Your stock has been underperforming and shareholders have been concerned with the change in leadership. Just wanted to understand what's been your interaction with them. What are some of the key concerns that they are actually posing to you? And what is the progress then on identification of a new MD?
See, any change at the top always is a cause of concern for all the stakeholders, because a particular entity, like let's say Equitas, we have certain way of doing things. We have a certain culture. We have certain values. Our governance standards are at a very, very high level. And our business model, if you look at it, our business model is slightly different from the regular banking industry, because while we go to the middle and upper income category to raise our deposits, but our lending is, as I mentioned, 90% to the informal sector, and that's slightly different from a traditional banking model. And so the concern for all stakeholders, not just investors, for all stakeholders, the concern is whether the new person who will come after me, whether he will continue in the direction that the bank is going presently, or will there be a significant change which might impact the performance of the bank. That's a concern. We are out of that, and we are definitely going to be keenly addressing that. So whoever comes in after me, the process is underway in terms of identifying a successor. There are 4 boxes that I keep telling people that a person has fairly. One is that he has to be aligned to our values. Second is he has to be aligned to our culture. Third is he has to be aligned to our business model, as I mentioned, which is very different from the rest of the banks. And fourth is that he has to be aligned to our management team, because our management team is very strong and they are highly committed in terms of growing the bank. So the new person has to be also a person who can easily align with the management team. So anyone who aligns with all these 4 boxes should definitely be able to do very well with the bank. As I mentioned, the bank is in a very strong position today. The corona effect is behind us. We are looking for a very strong growth going forward. And the new person who comes in should be a person who can help the bank grow further in the direction that the bank is already going. So the concern, I'm not saying the concern is not there, but definitely we are taking a lot of effort to address that concern. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't have a timeline to step down. So we will do it at our pace, at our leisure, till we know that we have got a person who is completely aligned to the bank.
Good to hear that, Mr. Vasudevan, and good luck with that. Good speaking with you as always.